Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Pokemon video. This is going to be my thoughts on today's Nintendo or Pokemon Direct that covered, I suppose, 15 minutes of new information on Pokemon Shield and Sword. Overall, I'd say I was a little bit disappointed with them not going overly in depth, and just I think especially one of the kind of reveals here, I don't particularly like it, and I think a lot of fans, I got the impression, weren't a big fan of it, and they focused a lot on that. So we'll get into that and where they kind of went wrong, but also where there's still lots and lots of hype for this game. So we'll be going mainly off the website here. As much as, you know, the Direct was a video thing, there's so much more information on the website, so we'll be going off that. In that, like, I don't think they even gave types to the new Pokemon that they revealed, whereas, like, they do give types to them on the website. So you can see the updated website here, including our two new legendaries, which we'll get to, and then all the updates, as you can see along here. They have little articles about them all. But first, I suppose, the actual games themselves. This was basically what they revealed. So we get the covers for both games, in addition to the announcement of a double pack. Now, I believe this is the kind of Europe or UK one. I think there's a different image out there for the American double pack. It seems to me just like combining the two arts into one thing. I don't know if this golden steel book is going to be a thing for everywhere. But I think it's a really cool idea, especially however they go about announcing what the differences are between the games. There could actually be a good reason to get both, and if there's good value in this dual pack, why not, I suppose, is the idea. So let's get into it. There's stuff that wasn't even covered in Direct. I don't really know. I think they announced this in the first one, but I don't think they covered stuff like this. I think this is a brand new screenshot here of just, you know, what the Rotom Pokedex can do. You can see here, for example, you can attach it to your bike to make it move faster on land. It can even help you travel over water. That's something new. It gives you a kind of screenshot from the game, plus the idea that there's like this Y kind of button prompt here that you can get. What else will we go to? I suppose we'll go through the Pokemon first and then get through some of the other ones. So obviously we knew the starters from beforehand, Grookey and so on. I don't think we necessarily knew all of this specific stuff. The stick held by Grookey was originally a branch from the forest where the troops of Grookey live, but it's no longer a simple branch. It has gained special powers after being exposed to the energy within Grookey's body. Its green fur creates energy from sunlight. Wilted flowers and leaves have been seen to regain their color when Grookey drums with its stick near them. Scorbunny, similarly. I think we knew the soles of its feet that become hot. You can kick it. I don't think we've seen that piece of art before. It's Fire Sack. Fire Sack within its chest. Vicious fire energy. Okay, you know, just a nice little kind of information on them. Sobble, of course. What do they have here? It disappears when it touches water. Okay, that's cool. I think we got that idea, but they again, I think a lot of this image stuff from the website is interesting. Tears as potent as 100 onions. Sobble's tears are capable of making others cry. I assume they'll use that in the anime when they introduce this guy. But yeah, then we get into the new Pokemon. So first up, Gossifleur. And you can see here, flowering Pokemon, it's a grass type, just grass. I was wondering, was it fairy type? Again, they didn't reveal it in the actual image. So double abilities here. Cotton Down is a new ability based on what they say, and then Regenerator is something that we've seen before. So that's cool to see the mentioning what the abilities are. Its pollen has a healing effect, prefers land with clean water and air. Its pollen has a healing effect. Its pollen works on people too, and it used to be a common folk medicine remedy for children of the Galar region to be given tea made from this pollen when they fell ill. Moves with the wind, and you can see a pretty cool shot there of them in the environment. Very, very cool. So yeah, nice to get that grass. Cotton Down, they explain it somewhere. I'll have to find the exact page it's explained on. I think it might be this page here, Eldergloss. So this is what Gossifleur evolves into. Again, it's a grass Pokemon, has the two same abilities. Cotton Fluff protects it from its enemies, hiding nutritious seeds. I think they covered some of this in the Direct itself. Not too much to say here. Is it just the standard Pokemon page? yeah, it might be this one. Yeah, the Pokemon. Yeah, I think it's this page where it's explained. So yeah, they explain the wild battles, and here, yeah, Cotton Down. Cotton Down, the ability of Gossifleur and Eldergloss is one of the new abilities. When a Pokemon with this ability is hit by an attack, it will send out a Cotton Fluff that will lower the speed stat of other Pokemon. So that's interesting. Diglett is a physical attacker, so I assume this ability probably only works on physical attacks, because it would be a little overpowered if just by default any attack that hits it results in a speed drop, but who knows, maybe it does affect both and it is just a defensive Pokemon, because it doesn't seem to be overly offensive, so that's interesting. Next up we have Wooloo. Pretty cool. The sheep Pokemon, it's just a normal type. I assume it will have an evolution that might get a dual typing, but it's got the ability Fluffy and Run Away. So I don't think it explains them, any of these ones here. Yeah, I don't think it explains what these two abilities do. Maybe it does somewhere on the website, but it hasn't maybe updated yet. Maybe we've seen them before, but they're just not particularly great abilities. They explained that, yeah, okay, like their fur is used in a lot of places in Galar. It's a friendly Pokemon. I think it's a cool design. Definitely, it fits in with the theming of the region. But obviously, it's one of the more kind of dull Pokemons, just because it's standard normal typing, and we don't know a lot about it. Next up, Corviknight. Very, very cool bird Pokemon, the Raven Pokemon. Flying and Steel type I think is actually very interesting. I was wondering like what exactly it would be, because like you'd think, okay, flying of course, dark maybe just because of the coloring, but it's actually flying and steel, which I think makes sense just because like the way the kind of panels are sort of laid out all over it definitely looks like armor. It definitely looks really powerful. So if this is a cool defensive Pokemon, that seems really, really cool. Flying Steel is, I think we've seen that before, but it's a nice typing, definitely. It said that Corviknight is the strongest Pokemon living in the skies of the Galar region. It can often be seen fearlessly soaring through the air. Sharp glare and a cry from this fearsome Pokemon, and it's also used as the taxi. So that's how strong it is, that it can lift up these taxi things. Pressure and Unnerve. Unnerve, I think, just has something to do with berries, if I remember correctly, and then Pressure is the one that makes you use double the power points of the move. So instead of using 1 of your 15, it uses 2 of your 15. So that's at least decent, if they're not overly impressive. But I definitely like it as a bird Pokemon. I don't necessarily get the impression that this is our like Pidgey equivalent or anything like that. But we'll have to wait and see on that. I assume they'll reveal a full 3-stage bird Pokemon at some point, or maybe just a 2-stage. Maybe this is it, and it just maybe evolves one more time, or they're just committing to the bird Pokemon this time just being a kind of standard, just basic Pokemon. Dreadnought, I think, is the best of the new Pokemon, at least the non-legendary ones for sure. I just think it looks really cool. So it's a water and rock Pokemon, so that's a nice typing as well. We don't have too many. A lot of the, I suppose, fossil type Pokemon are like that, like Ammonite and stuff like that. But it's the bite Pokemon. It's got strong jaw and shell armor. Strong jaw, I think we've seen that ability before. I can't really remember exactly what it does. Shell armor is the one where when you take, I think it's physical attacks, your defense goes down, but your speed goes up. I may have that wrong, because I think there are 2 armor abilities, but again, I have to look up a lot of that sort of stuff. But I like that they're giving the abilities for sure. I think Strong Jaw just increases the power of bite type moves. That would fit in with the idea that it is this really powerful biting Pokemon that's all about powerful jaws. Look how wide it opens its mouth up. There's definitely a lot of character there, which I like. It's known to be extremely vicious, skilled trainer to tame. It seems that some trainers will release Dreadnought back into the wild once they discover they can't handle it. We see also here from the image, it's level 55, so if it evolves very late, unless they're just going for some sort of this is some stock battle where like it's the Pokemon are just bumped up to a level or something like that, because both Pokemon are level 55. I don't know if that necessarily says it does or does not evolve. It to me feels kind of like one of those Pokemon that probably looks powerful enough just in this form as it is that it probably won't evolve again. Just it seems kind of like one of those ones, like a Heracross, a Pinsir type thing, where it's just strong, basic Pokemon that doesn't need to evolve. Then we get the legendary Pokemon here, so we get Zacian and Zamazenta. And yeah, very, very cool here. You know, we knew, of course, there were going to be a kind of Sword Wolf and a Shield Wolf. And I actually do like it. I do prefer the Shield one overall, just because the Shield stuff is like incorporated into the body, whereas the Wolf one, it just seems like it's holding a sword in its mouth. And I just find it, it's a more like combined design with the sword stuff incorporated in. I actually do like both of them. And I like the idea of it. They just presented the idea that these two are just fighting in the woods. It's, I suppose, the ultimate blade versus the impenetrable shield, who actually wins in the end. But it's very interesting. So, attacks so gracefully that its movement can even captivate its opponents. It holds what appears to be a sword. In its mouth. Maybe that's a hint that it's not a sword, and maybe it is part of its mouth or something like that. That would be a bit weird, but like, that's very weird wording. Like, oh yeah, I wonder what else it could be. Maybe it is some sort of a key or something like that, and there's some bigger mystery to it, but who knows. Zamazenta's regal and majestic movements overwhelm any opponents that it faces. Its body is covered in what seems to be a shield. Again, that's kind of funny. Again, I suppose the idea, if it is legendary Pokemon and they're gonna say that these are really old Pokemon, they're maybe borderline saying that like the idea of a sword and a shield in the Pokemon world come from these Pokemon. So them being part of them as Pokemon, it wouldn't necessarily be a sword or a shield necessarily. So I don't know how to really explain it, but still, I like both of them. Right now I'm definitely leaning towards, I like the defensive Pokemon more, the shield one more. But again, I want to see what the specific stats are. The fact that they're both sword and shield, it would lead me to believe that probably they're both steel typed in some way. But if it's not, if it's like appears to be this, appears to be that, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be steel. So what else could it be? Visually, I don't think they seem to show too much. Like, their color schemes like lead you to believe it could be anything. Really, they're like, yeah, like the ones that would obviously come to mind would be steel, normal. I doubt they do normal. There doesn't seem to be anything particularly elemental about them as such, but I suppose that could be revealed somewhere down the line. So steel type legendaries could be cool. Who knows? But yeah, let's get into some of the other stuff that they showed off. So there's the standard page, the Rotom Pokedex. This to me is the biggest like reveal from what they showed. And it was interesting that they more or less skipped over it to focus on just like one aspect of this, instead of like, no, this is what you should have borderline focused most of the 15 minutes on, the wild area. The vast expanse of land in the Galar region is known as the wild area. It's full of nature as far as the eye can see. It connects several different towns and cities. You'll find a greater variety of Pokemon living here than anywhere else in the Galar region. The Pokemon you'll run into will change depending on things like the weather and location, and you might see something new every time you visit. You can change the camera here, and it seems like the way that they're going for it is that it's a standard Pokemon game when you're like in and around the towns, but when you go into this area, it becomes this like open world Pokemon game, and the Pokemon are now out there in the open. You approach them. This is where I suppose the Let's Go style of things comes into play, and you can see the Pokemon around, which seems really, really cool. Now, I don't know if we know for sure if it's just necessarily the case like, hey look, there's a Tyranitar right there, let's just try and capture a Tyranitar, or you do actually have to still use the grass and this just happens to be a wandering Tyranitar. But still, looks great. The different locations, you know, water, plains, you know, desert type area, you know, grass. Look, you're there up on a kind of cliff almost here. You see a bird Pokemon there. This seems fantastic, and you can control the camera to get great shots and stuff like that. I don't see anything better that they showed off in this sequence than this and the potential that it has. And then some of the shots that they showed of like the idea that it seems like potentially you might be able to go around this area with your friends in the game and like you have these kind of beacons at different areas, and that's where these kind of raid battles will take place. Because yeah, we'll get into this. Oh, we go from the best thing to probably the worst thing about it. Dynamax. I don't get what they were going for here. I get the basic gimmick of like, here's your Pokemon now, here's your Pokemon really, really big. But it being the new battle mechanic, I just don't think it's all that great. Like, just making the Pokemon big and then making their attacks more powerful just seems like way too gimmicky without it really feeling like it fits into anything. Like, unless there's a good story reason, I think, for this, it just feels super gimmicky. And it feels way worse than, you know, I know there was a lot of doubt about Mega Evolution initially. There were doubts about Z moves initially. But in the end, I think most people like Mega Evolution and would like them to return to that and do more of them and add to that. Z moves, I think, ended up being kind of fine for what they were, because it just allowed you to use, you know, one super powerful move of that type in a match, and there were some kind of cool aspects to it. It just allowed you to kind of fit in with the theme there. Here, it's just like your Pokemon becomes a giant for like 3 turns and is just like more powerful. It just, I don't necessarily like it. I think they do an okay job at then incorporating it in later on with the kind of max raid battles or whatever they're called. But just the fact that you're going to be going into like the Pokemon League, and all of those trainers are going to have like their final Pokemon, and their big gimmick is going to be that they Dynamax it. To me, that just doesn't seem all that great. And I think it's going to run out of steam. The gimmick is going to lose a lot of steam very quickly of just, oh, my Pokemon's big, let's fight. Oh, 3 turns are over, now let's get back to normal Pokemon. I don't know why they couldn't just use Mega Evolution again and just do more of them to fit what was going on here. But we see here, the Dynamax band is how you actually do it. I do like the idea that, you know, when you throw out a Pokemon and you're going straight for Dynamax, the Pokeball does get like bigger and stuff like that. There's something, you know, fun to that. We see that that's the way that they do it. So this Pokemon has a Scratch, Razor Leaf, Growl, and Taunt. And that changes Scratch into Max Strike, which I suppose is just the Dynamax normal physical move. Max Overgrowth is the Dynamax grass move. Max Guard are what they do the status inducing moves. So that was more or less how I think Z moves sort of worked, where like every electric move was turned into, you know, the Z electric move, unless you had a special kind of Pokemon that could use something different. So yeah, normal type, max move called Max Strike, so they're called max moves. It also has an additional effect of lowering speed stats. So like there's something extra there. I just think the visual effect of like how they're incorporating this in isn't that great. This I think is a bit better, but I'd almost prefer that this gimmick be confined to this type of thing. But max raid battles, I do think, seem very, very cool. That you basically encounter these bosses that are giant Pokemon, and you can take them on, and one person on your team is allowed to make one of their Pokemon a giant. That to me feels like a cooler way to do it, to make the battles a little bit more fair, rather than this is now going to become a part of every battle, basically, that you do once you get it. And the only thing is that it just makes your Pokemon bigger for some reason. So yeah, only one trainer out of your 4 can Dynamax, and only once per battle. You face them with friends, which is very cool. Cooperating with your allies is key to victory, and you can even catch Pokemon. Even catching the Pokemon is super dynamic. Okay, and you can see the size of the big Pokeball here. And then depending on the you do this in the wild area, so it's going to change depending on the weather. So there's my boy Lantern, very cool to see him there as a Dynamax Pokemon. Yeah, I think that's most of the information that we have here. Is there anything else to say about it? Like, there is this stuff here. They go into the people here. They cover some of the world. I suppose they do talk about here that the Pokemon battles are regarded as the most popular form of entertainment. I do like that incorporation there that they got into, and that effectively, because this is the UK inspired region, they're basically saying Pokemon battles is the equivalent of football. So every town has like a stadium for their club. Now apply that to Pokemon battles, where like the gyms that you go to are basically like the trainers are having a match in the stadium that is that gym. To me, that seems really, really, really cool, and a great way to make Pokemon battles feel more interesting. Whereas a lot of times before, the gyms just felt like you were going into this whole other world, and only the people who happened to be there were aware of what went on. Whereas here, if you beat the gym leader, it's televised. Like, of course, they're a famous Pokemon trainer. Their matches will be televised. That makes complete sense. And you'd see it will become news across the region that, oh, this person has 7 badges. They're getting close, and so on. And this, I think, is really cool, like, world-building stuff that I do really like. Okay, so our 2 main characters that we have here, I think we get to see some of the customization. I don't know if we saw this before, but there's the basic, I suppose, hero character designs, and then you can obviously have your customization based on like skin tone and stuff like that. Leon is our champion of the Pokemon League, and he's known as the greatest trainer in all of Galar. That's pretty interesting. Hop is his brother, and he's your rival. I do actually like that dynamic, that he sort of has a lot to live up to because his brother is the best trainer ever. He wants to be the best trainer ever, but you're his rival. That could lead to some pretty interesting stuff, depending on if they try to add any sort of a kind of maybe emotional dynamic into things. Professor Magnolia here is our professor, and she's all about the Dynamax phenomenon, unfortunately. But she says her home with Sonia, who we'll cover in a second, and has given her a certain research task. ... So, bit of a mystery, and then here's Sonia. Very cool. Granddaughter of Professor Magnolia, Leon's childhood friend. She's a young researcher who serves as assistant to Professor Magnolia. She's very knowledgeable and will offer helpful advice to you on your adventure. So, yeah, not too much to say here. They don't go into a lot of depth there, but at least it's something. There's the Pokemon League. You'll have to take on Pokemon gyms from around the region as you join the competition. Reach the Pokemon League. So yeah, that seems really cool. The idea that you seem to wear some sort of a like trainer jersey or something like that going in, and that I think that works really cool. Like that, they're almost getting across the idea that like each trainer has their own individual number, and no one else has that number, and that's what specifies them among everyone else. I don't know specifically if that's the case, but it does seem very cool to keep the kind of football or soccer aspect of this in play. What else do we have here? Okay, the starter Pokemon. I think I already covered this. Yeah, I think that's the information we knew from before. That might be everything apart from the actual trailers and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's everything. So yeah, the release date November 15th, 2019. Like I said, we have the covers and stuff like that for the individual versions. Plus, there is going to be a dual pack. I think in every region it might be slightly different. This appears to be the UK version. We're going to be getting a pretty cool gold steelbook, and if that's shiny gold, that could be something that actually gets me interested. Yeah, I actually really like the art for both of these. I think it looks really, really nice. The Shield Pokemon looks really cool. And the Sword one looks great as well. So I'm leaning towards Shield right now, just because I like the more defensive style for the most things. But we'll see what the exclusive Pokemon are. If any of my favorites are in Shield and not in Sword, that will obviously inform my decision. But yeah, final thoughts ultimately are that I think I think almost excessive focus on the Dynamax feature kind of brought this direct down a little bit, in my opinion. But thankfully, I think a lot of the new Pokemon are looking fairly good, even if I think they're showing us some of the less interesting ones in terms of like your standard grass Pokemon that you're not going to get too much use out of in terms of a really strong Pokemon. you know, your standard normal type Pokemon. The Flying Steel actually seems fairly good actually, and Dreadnought as a Water Rock, if I remember correctly. These two actually seem quite good in terms of like Pokemon you might actually use. Not sure about this thing unless it evolves into something a bit more impressive. Similarly, Eldegoss, is that the final stage or is there another stage? It just seems a bit weird that it almost goes from like the first form looks really nice, second form looks like it's almost still incomplete. Maybe there is a third form and make it like a Vileplume type line. And then I think a lot of people were disappointed they didn't show anything more about the starters in terms of maybe the second stage evolution or even the third. Because I think for a lot of people, including myself, I'm not going to be able to make up my mind between which ones I want to start with until we see the final evolution stage, because that's what you're going to be using the most. That's what's going to ultimately define its effectiveness in battle. Most of the time, if they get a secondary typing, it only comes into play properly right at the end, so a lot of that stuff is only important then. Yeah, as I said, I think most of these Pokemon are looking very good so far. I don't think there's any just like duds, apart from just the fact that like how excited can you really get about just a standard normal Pokemon that doesn't have anything overly impressive in its ability slots. And then the wild Pokemon thing, this I think is definitely the biggest improvement and most impressive feature of the game so far. This I think is the thing that will blow people away from this direct, not Dynamaxing or whatever it's called. It just looks kind of silly. It looks like it is kind of, you're using kind of balloon floats of the Pokemon rather than the actual Pokemon themselves. I think it's just it's a little dumb in my opinion, even though this use for them is actually fairly interesting. But I almost like it better that you don't have, that your Pokemon aren't able to do that. That it is just 4 trainers using their standard size Pokemon, like this shot here. You have to go up against them 4 versus 1, and you get your whole team potentially just against one really big Gyarados and stuff like that. That to me seems cooler than, oh, I'm going to make my Raichu real big and just smash you with it and it's going to be over. We'll see exactly how it works in terms of health, how powerful are the like raid battle Pokemon, but you know, the raid battle feature is cool. I just the whole idea behind giant Pokemon just feels very weird to me. But yeah, very positive still so far. I hope we see some more about this at E3. I hope they reveal some new Pokemon. And that they're not overly precious about the information. It felt a little bit like they were really holding back here with the amount of Pokemon that they showed us, and especially the sort of types of Pokemon that they showed us as well. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more variety, just to keep that coming. But most things about this game look very good. I think Dynamax is the only feature so far that looks like, yeah, no, please no. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the Pokemon Direct from earlier on today. But that's been my thoughts. Which version are you going to be picking up so far based on what you've seen? But yeah, it's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.